What is up, and welcome to SkillDiff, where we have not only differing skill sets, but vastly differing opinions. I'm your host, Dylan Sinnott, beside of my beautiful guest today,
Patrick Holifield. Happy to be here for episode number 4, baby.
Absolutely. We watched nothing but glorious esports action over the weekend, and this time we're going to kick it off with the CDL. When we recorded this episode last week, Optic had a different roster. Last week, we had Kenny. Champion, two-time, big time, no Kenny. So is it new Optic, new problems, or is it new Optic, everything solved?
I mean, it's just typical same old new Optic, new problems. I mean, they finally did listen and got rid of Kenny, although I did hear that he actually chose to step down himself instead of them like replacing him, because they are all about that family. So I was big team get rid of Kenny. I thought he was a problem. So they bring in Skies, a world champion or whatever, which is cool and great, but like it's going to take time before we see any results. And that's what we saw at the majors. Sure. It's like they were able to beat the Roker, which was nice. And like we talked about last time, that was like the next step on their ladder that they needed to go up to keep beating better and better teams. But ultimately they failed to the Ultra, which, I mean, a lot of teams were falling to the Ultra. They were looking extremely hot. But Skies, I think, is a good player, and he will do better for the team. But Optic, the problem was never the talent. The talent they had. Kenny was a champion. He just won Worlds last year. So the talent's not the problem. Something within the team was the problem. So maybe Skies can bring whatever it is. Maybe it's that better vibes. Maybe it's the better teamwork. There's a lot of things he could do. And his performance this weekend at the Major, while not the best, there's definitely potential there, and we'll see where it goes in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the big question is going to be, was Skies always the option, right? We saw him bring in Hook the Nuke initially, whenever you had the little fiasco, as it may be, with Pred. So it's like, do we know that this was Skies? Was it always going to be Skies? Or was it one of those things of, you saw that LAT series, you saw him get smoked, and you were like picking up the phone, like, who can we get? What does it look like? Because, I mean, I do think there's probably a lot of validity to, Kenny stepping down, reaching out to the coach, Mr. Karma himself, and being like, hey, it ain't me right now, figure out something. So I am curious what was kind of their options, because, I mean, we're looking right now at Neptune, who went from a Challengers player to a top 5 player in the league. So it's like you'd like to imagine you'd pick up somebody maybe from the Challengers team. So it is interesting that, a lot of people were saying Caesar Skies kind of fell up into the Optic role. He didn't really kind of earn his spot. So, and I mean, when you look at it for the event, I mean, he was a 0.78 KD, dropped 14 on kills. In the penultimate map they had, that S&D versus Ultra, he literally went 1-7. They got kind of smoked. But they kind of had him as a hill caddy early on, so he was holding down a lot of the time in the series. They did win. I think he had about 220 on hill time in that hard point. So, I mean, he was doing all he could. He doesn't really know the team that well. Probably didn't get a lot of practice time in. So, I mean, I think you set course. I think you could have probably set course with Kenny. It is weird that the decision was made between last weekend and the start of the event and the ring ceremony and all that other stuff. I still think they're a piece away, candidly. I think Shotzi at this point wasn't looking the best. Dashy has really, really stepped it up. I initially was big team. I think you should keep Pred and Shotzi, but Shotzi's been looking a little skatey. So I think you're still one move away. I don't understand why Hook wasn't brought in. I mean, he literally did well with the squad. I don't know if that was a Kenny problem or, internal conflicts with the team, but no matter what, they had a tough bracket. Like you said, they got Ultra 2, which I'd say Ultra is probably arguably the third best team there is in the world right now, maybe even second. So it's like, what are you doing? Hard to face them, tough bracket. I say ride out the next split, see what happens.
I'm totally big team agree. Like you said, it takes time. So will Sky be the best choice? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how we go into the next major. On top of that, the major of Faze, dominant performance here, coming out undefeated. Is Faze just too good?
I mean, the Tiny Terrors, dude, they're something else, man. I mean, we've gotten to see Simp and Co. just dominate now for what feels like forever. I saw a stat the other day that's talking about how many championships they're stacking up. I don't think they'll ever get to catch Krem, unfortunately, and that's just how the MLG and UMG events used to be versus how they are today. But, dude, their empire, their legacy has been long-standing. Since the year before the CDL, when we had the CWL, they were on an E United squad that was absolutely lethal with RCDs and others. And then now it's, you still see them on Faze. They've been on that roster the whole time, and, they're holding it steady. First three-peat since the Optic dynasty. I mean, they're holding it down. It's tough. I mean, it's one of those, like, I mean, the worst part is, like, you could look at Simp and Beezy, but then at the end of the day, it's like, Celium is the best player in the whole thing. It looks incredible. Like, kids slaying out. Player of the tournament. Really, really hard to hold them down, and I can't imagine a reality where they're not going to be the favorites for the rest of the year. But the double-edged sword of that is for the past 4 or 5 years, that's been the case, and they got one chip to show for it. So, I mean, last year they were extremely good. Optic won. The year 100 Thieves won. They were extremely good. 100 Thieves won. So it's tough. You don't want them to peak early on, but it feels like they're always kind of in this spot. But, I mean, man, if I'm choosing any spot to be, it's in the driver's seat, first place, comfortable, basically auto-qualified already for, the champs final event. Driver's seat, beautiful spot to be. I mean, they're on top of the world. To me, it's no longer a 2-horse race. It's a 1-horse race. That horse is a country mile ahead, and we'll get to it in a minute, but I think there's a new horse number 2 as well.
I know who you're talking about with that one. Yeah, Faze, they have that constant consistency, and that's a big thing, especially when it comes to LAN. Their online performance sometimes can seem a little dodgy at best, and they lose some matches they probably shouldn't. But when they get on that LAN, and we all know online and LAN gameplay, there's a big difference there. And then when it comes to LAN, they deliver. I was extremely impressed with Abizi and his Search and Destroy. He was killing it on Search and Destroy. I mean, he's just outplaying everybody. And what's funny about it is their whole team, like going into it, it's like obviously I was expecting LAT to be the big dogs or whatever, and Faze was like always sitting there at that number 2 creeping in. But like Faze just, they blew me away this event. Like honestly, the way they perform online to the LAN is so vastly different. It's almost like it's a completely different team. Like having Simp and them on LAN is just it's a dominant performance. And their respawn, everything about it, their control, all dominant performance from Faze. I expect to definitely see them as the number 1 team going into the Worlds.
100%. I mean, and even to piggyback off of that, like it's crazy to me that like obviously I've been around the COD scene for quite a while, and it's seeing Simp now as that vet in S&D when you really need the match, watching him come up and get a big 2-piece. Even though Celium kind of backed him up for pretty much the whole event, but seeing Simp and Abizi be in that like kind of veteran leadership role, like it's a really unique and candidly quite scary thing. But on the other end of the scary is we thought this was a 2-horse race. We thought LA Thieves were going to come in. I say we loosely because one of us didn't predict them to be in the finals. One of us did predict Faze to be in the finals and win. But that other team, they weren't there. They got first round dropped, went to losers, made a little bit of a run, but then they ran out of that Ultra squad. But, dude, the Thieves, what's happening, man?
Yeah, this one's a little bit embarrassing for me because obviously, yes, I'd picked the Thieves to do a whole lot better in this tournament. And, like, because when we're looking at the online, like, they didn't drop a game.
Totally. Warriors.
Legit undefeated online gamers.
Yeah.
But like I was just saying 5 seconds ago, the LAN gameplay and online gameplay, vastly different. And I don't know if it's just like they were maybe nervous. I tried to chop that first game up to like, oh, it's first game on stage. It's been a minute. Maybe we're looking a little rocky. And it was looking like that way at first. Like then they go on to dominate the likes of Cloud9 and the other teams. But then they get to the big bad.
Well, they didn't even make it to the big bad. They dropped the first game is the worst part.
Dude,
they glaze over that?
No, well, I mean, we can glaze over that. I mean, it's fine because like we tightened that one up. Nah, but really realistically, it was like their performance was not that great. Sure. I don't think that's going to be how it will going forward. Like they can do a lot better than that. This one was just I want to call it a fluke. And I'm going to stand by that because, I mean, I like 100 Thieves. Yeah. I think they're going to do fantastic. And I do think they still hold that number 1 to 2 seed spot against Faze. I think they can beat them. But, I mean, they just had a bad performance, and we're just going to shake that one off.
Sure. I mean, I think it's interesting because, to me, the biggest thing is when we looked at them playing online, dude, they've been so dominant when it comes to respawn. And they look so bad at respawn in this series. In the first one and obviously the last one as well. I mean, Envoy at time, he looked lost. And it was really hard. I think Scrap did hold it together. And, this is no shade to Scrap. I think he's an awesome individual and a great player. Usually he's been a little bit more on that, like, he's a good smack talker online and or in LAN, and sometimes he gets the best of him, sometimes a little emotional. He held it down to his tournament. He tried his best. He did everything he could, but he just didn't really have the guys behind him. And that's tough. I don't necessarily think that'll be the case moving forward, but not that I'm a great Zohan reading the crystal ball over here, but it does feel like this might be one of the lows. Like, there was a reality. They dropped that first game in the losers bracket, and they were down 0-1. And it was like, dude, LA Thieves about to get double first rounded. This is crazy. But that to me is the low of this team, and you can see that. But the high of this team is you're taking Faze to round 11, game 7, pushing them to the point. It's you never know what you're going to get. Is it going to be the online one that's scary? Is it going to be the in-person one that's nothing to be afraid of? And it's such a variable swing, and it's hard to see because I do think LA Thieves will be there at the end of the season. But right now, I think there might be a new second team.
Yeah, and I think it's about time we talk about that team. And that team is none other than the Ultra, who out this whole time for me has always just been about consistency. And they showed up to this event. Sure. So as you were just saying, the Ultra, do you think they are top 2? Are they top 3, top 4?
Yeah, I mean, my bold thing right now is I think they're the second horse in the race right now. I mean, again, I don't think this is a close running for first. They're 2 corners away from the lead still. But I do think this kind of edges them ahead of 100 Thieves, LA Thieves, whatever you want to call it now. It's interesting, too, because the CEO of the Ultra tweeted this a little while ago that I think this year will be better than Thieves. You see the Joey Deceives kind of swaparoo happens, and when he wins, he's up, he's jawing, he's telling him, he's letting him know, like, this is what you traded me for or dropped me for. And it's, you feel a lot of emotion with those cats. And, I'm a huge Beans guy, too. The pride of Manchester, his little fighting spirit out there, just smack talking, like watching him walk through the tunnels, like total highlights of the event. But I mean, that team does look really good. I think they are still a little bit inconsistent. I still think they do have a little bit of maturing to get through. I don't think we've seen their worst finish yet, but candidly, I'm not sure we've seen their best finish yet. I think they can maybe sneak in a Major 3, a Major 4 win. I think it's going to be real hard for them to get a champs run. I mean, that Faze squad is going to be so hard to beat, especially in 2 series. Maybe they sneak an Esports World Cup where it's more of a single elim type of event. But I think Ultra can win one this year. I really think right now I think you could maybe argue that the Surge could also win an event because that was the T4 at the end of the day. But I think right now the Thieves got to secure themselves above the Surge, and I think right now the Ultras kind of secured themselves above the Thieves.
Yeah, this one's it's honestly a tough one for me to really kind of put these teams. Do I want to put Ultra in the top 3? Because, like, for me, it's like I think LAT is still holding on to that 1 to 2 spot with Faze. Like, I put them 2 up there. They can battle between themselves for the 1 and 2. But it's like, then Surge, for me, is probably number 3, then followed by the Ultra.
Sure.
Ultra really did outperform any expectations I honestly have for him. And the Mr. Beans that you were just talking about, dude, I've never really been much of a Beans fan. Normally, I'm always kind of like looking at him like, his D was okay. Dude, he was performing this one. Dude, one of these search and destroys, he dropped like a 1.6 on the KD, or it was against Surge on Protocol. Their map that they're supposed to be the dominant search destroy on, and Beans is just taking it to them.
Sure.
And it's so funny because then after the match, he's yelling across, dude.
Yeah.
I think Toronto are a great team. Joey, absolute dominant. Ever since he dropped that KD record, he has been popping off. Sure. Their whole team is great. Kleenex, dominant performance. They do have the ability to be in the top 3, the top 4. They could definitely take Surge down, but it's the same thing as always. It's like we may have got this Toronto Ultra 100%. This time, but are we going to get that same Ultra in Major 3?
Totally. I mean, we were just talking about Neptune previously, and so Neptune had taken the mantle of the high Slayer rating since he's been in the league. But then as of this event, you had Joey Deceives, the number 2 person in the whole event, number 3 Slayer right now in the whole season. So just like that, the titles turn, and, will we get this Joey Deceives the whole time? Like, will we get this King of Clutch Beans for the rest of the season? I mean, I hope so. It's been exciting, and COD's in a good place right now. It's fun to watch. I was afraid for this whole season we were going to see 2 teams just play each other and beat up on each other, but, we're finally in a peaceful spot where it looks like arguably if 4 teams won, you wouldn't be surprised. You could argue that maybe if 3 of them beat one of them, you might be surprised, but it feels like a full horse race. There might be 4 at the bottom, but we try to avoid those. But moving on to the next games that we want to cover is got a little bit of Valorant action. We're kicking this nonsense off.
Finally, talking about Valorant again. This is what I've been.
I could have waited.
This is what I've been waiting for. The best game in the world. We finally get to talk about it again.
100%. So we're going to start things off with the Leviathan matchup. We kind of had some high expectations of those guys coming in. What were your expectations, and then did this meet your reality, or were you left wanting a little more?
This one's going to be tough for me to talk about, okay? Because this one hurt me down to my soul because I, for one, am a big fan of EG, or the old EG when they won the World. So all the players that were part of that team. And Demon 1, which is one of those players who was on Louis Vuitton, was dominant, best duelist that season. And then that's kind of fallen off, got struck around, went to NRG, got benched. Now he's on Louis Vuitton. And this was a good roster for him to be on. And then they do this switch. So they drop Nathan. They bring in this kid named Rossi. Okay? Not only that, we're going to make him IGL now. So King, who was their IGL before, is now like, no, I'm not going to do IGL. I'm going to do duelist. This is a big swap, okay? He's just going to play duelist now. He's always been a good player, don't get me wrong. Demon 1, he's going to go move the controller. Demon 1's done controller before, that's fine. So I'm like, okay, this has potential. This could definitely be it. Not it. MIBR, which is a pretty solid team, just had their best performance ever at the kickoffs of finishing top 4. First time they've ever been top 4. And Aspas is on that team, so he's doing good. But, oh, my goodness, King just was, dude, he played Jorah all those times. Yep. Not a good performance. Demon 1, not a good performance. The only solid player on that team was Tex. And just half the time they're making the weirdest calls I've ever seen coming out from them. I got a couple little stats here I'd like to drop for this. King went 19-32 in this series. This was a 2-round series. Dropped a minus 13. Artisan got 3 4Ks. Now this is for MIBR, and this is where it really gets bad. He got 4 3Ks, 7 2Ks, and 2 4Ks for Zenom. And you know what King did? King got 1 4K and nothing else. The only person on their team, they won no pistols, they won no econs. Sure. And like we've talked about before, if you're not winning any pistol rounds, you're not winning any econs, you're not winning the game.
100%.
And like they're just looking lost out there. And that's what tilts me, because they're the people they have on their team, top level talent, are easily able to win, and yet they drop 2-0 to MIBR. Not a good showing. I hope they can do better going forward.
100%. I mean, to piggyback off that, the thing that I had noted is, like, it's crazy to me. The first half of both of those games was not crazy, one side or anything like that. But the back halves of both of those, first map split, there was 8 rounds in the back half. They only got 2 plants. They only won one of those rounds. They went 7-1 on the backside. Like, no strat. Felt like you lost the pistol, lost and everything. You go to game 2. We'll fix this. We're gonna regroup. We're gonna sit there and talk. In the game 2, you had 9 on the T side.
Game.
That's the whole thing.
It's
one of those things where it's like, what are we doing? Like, I don't know. You lost all the momentum. It looked bad, like you said. Like, it looks like a team that doesn't have a voice. Looks like a team that's still kind of like lacking a lot of direction. And it's probably because you changed people's position. You changed IGLs. Like, you made a lot. And like, I mean, candidly, at the end of this, I was left questioning, like, no disrespect to MIBR, but like, they might be good. They look good. Did they look good against a bad team? I don't know. But like, in that game, they look good.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is MIBR are a decent team, but Leviathan should be doing a lot better. Speaking of teams that should be doing a lot better,
perfect.
We should talk about the main matchup for this weekend that most people are looking forward to, which was 100T versus Sentinels.
I mean, there was a lot of excitement going into this. I mean, we got to see a lot of Sentinels as they actually qualified out representing the Americas. Even though that, maybe somebody at this desk wanted a different team to go. I think we got to see why that team didn't get to go. Because it's weird because they're so inconsistent. The first match, medium close. Second match, looked really good. Won it. The third one, you almost got bageled. Almost got bageled. A 13-1, insane. I think when we went back and looked at it, I wrote it down. They had 3 2Ks the whole map. Whole map. Your best ADR person is going to be a Sage. So your healer is leading your team in damage. And I know that's like not the most atypical of that team. I mean, Cryocels was doing really good. But it feels wrong. It feels weird. It doesn't feel good. They didn't look good. They kept making a whole bunch of weird strats. They would lose 2v1s with bomb plant. They wouldn't watch the guy planting the bomb. The guy defending him would get killed. They would kill the planter. Bunch of weird rotations. But it was also odd, too, because in the second map, it's like they were reading them perfectly. They just couldn't hold sights. They kept getting broke on the backside, and it was like, everything they did, it just felt like they did it wrong, and I don't know. I don't know what to expect. At this current phase, it's like, at times I think Sentinels didn't look the greatest in that series, but 100 Thieves ain't looking good.
Yeah, I mean, for this matchup specifically, Sentinels normally does always take it, but the problem for me with 100 Thieves is because, I mean, as in Call of Duty, as in VCT, I do like 100 Thieves, okay? I think they're a great team. But mainly I'm a fan of a certain individual on there. His name is Boostio, who is their IGL leader, who's a part of that EG squad that I talked about.
Did he play in that matchup? Because I didn't see him.
It might have looked like he wasn't playing because my man did absolutely a little bit terrible. Yeah, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It was pretty bad.
Pretty close enough.
And that's been his performance ever since pretty much last year. And he's just disappointed me a lot. And I know he's a good player. He's a great IGL because, like, when we look at that Game 1 Pearl, Boostio is making those calls, and he's predicting what Sentinels is going to do for, like, literally 4 or 5 rounds straight on defense. Like, he is set up, the whole team's set up to defend it, yet they're still just making a little bit dumb plays, and they're stacking sites and they're losing, and that's where you're like losing the plot. If you're full stacking defense and they come to your site and you still lose, there's a little bit of a problem there, especially with all the util that you have. And when we go to Game 3 with that 13-1, they used that same comp against Sentinels in the kickoffs, okay? And it went pretty much the inverse, 13-4 victory for 100 Thieves.
Sure.
Then they want to bring out the same comp again, thinking Sentinels isn't going to know what their game plan is. Zekin even talked about it after the show along with the coach about how, like, yeah, you know, it's like we knew what they wanted to do with this comp. We figured they'd play this comp. So now we're just going to play a little bit farther back. We know they're going to try to util dump on us and push us. And it's like they played them to a T on that one. 100%. And that's why they 13-1 them. I'm not a fan of the comp. I don't think the comp's good. They were able to gimmick their win the first time against Sentinels with it, but like they need to do a little bit of readjusting.
It also feels like low key, if you're Sentinels, I think it's 4D chess. If you let them win that one, I think it's round 7, because they just kept doing it. And it's like maybe you just gave them a little tease of like, oh, it can work. Like just do it again. Just do it again. Yeah, all in all, like that was crazy to me. I do think that a lot of this is going to be predicated on the fact that Boostio photo, he's not done good since that photo was posted. That could have been the beginning of the end. I don't know. Like I might not have done that. But the next thing that we want to kind of talk about is a twofold subject here. We looked at the 2G roster trying to compete. Another U.S. versus Brazil matchup. It feels like we might have an esport here in America. Like we might be a dominant region. When it comes to the Americas, we might be kings of the castles. Like, is that what you took away from that series, or?
I mean, no disrespect to our fellow allies of South America. We're in the same region, but I mean, obviously, I feel like the North America teams have always been better than the South American teams. They've had a few good ones. Loud was really good for a while until their players got a little bit shifted around. But this new squad, 2G, they show some quite potential. Now, they were facing EG, and I would put EG at a lower tier of the North American squads. I don't think they're quite up there. But they still, for a first performance show, very good. Zap, who is their IGL, who is also playing like the initiator role and stuff, very just eccentric guy. I mean, he was out there just yelling on the stage, like, let's do this, baby. We love to see that because we love the excitement, and he did extremely well. He went +3 in the whole series, even though they lost. I think they have the potential. I think they are better than maybe Crew. But I don't think they're better than MIBR or their other Brazilian teams are Loud. And I don't think they're better than any of the American teams. It's going to be tough for them to hang, but hopefully throughout this split and through next split after Toronto, hopefully they can do a lot better, and maybe they might actually be a contender.
Yeah, I mean, this is coming from the person who did, I believe, 2 or 3 weeks ago say that America's reign might be over and I would be very scared of Brazil. That might be wrong. That could totally be an incorrect assertion. I do think that, as we were kind of looking at it, we had both, I think it was Ye and Nature, both kind of popped off, carried the series. It does feel like maybe it's just the American way where you have some kind of He-Man plays out doing teamwork at times, because it did look like that they looked really well, and it looked like from a play setup they were pretty good. It was just at the end of the day, if Ye and Nature slaying out, it's not a lot you can do. And I feel like they kept kind of carrying and backpacking. That's kind of how we felt, similar with with Loud, with MIBR, and a lot of those other Brazilian organizations. Is it does feel like they often have really good strategies, but at the end of the day, when you got to go up against rosters with like Jajamo and all these other terrifying players that can at any drop of the hat be like, here's a 4K, we're good. We don't need a strategy.
Won the round. No
won the round. It's over. It's cool. So I mean, it does kind of feel like we might be entering in a little bit of the Americas dominated by America. I do hope the Brazilian teams kind of step it up and make it a little bit more exciting towards the end. But, I mean, candidly, I'm not going to be upset if we get 2 American teams or 3 American teams still representing the Americas. I'm not going to complain in any capacity. At this rate, though, I just don't think it's going to be 100 Thieves.
It is America, after all.
This is true. Moving on to the next esport, which, speaking of, we really need America to get back involved in. I hear that Stewie 2K is coming back, maybe. But we got CS2 over the weekend, the Blast Lisbon Open qualifiers, Group A and Group B. We got to see a fabled rematch that we got to see maybe a week beforehand, which is Mouz versus the Donk Show and Team Spirit. Mouz victorious yet again. Do they just got their number? Like, Donk down? Like, what is this? Like, how's nobody in the world can stop the great Donk and Spirit, but Mouz just bodies them.
Yeah, it's crazy to me is that Mouz might just be that like little weak spot. They know how to get under their skin.
Yeah.
Because Donk is an outstanding player. There was a stat he done like 22 like entry frag kills, and the next on his team was like 7. Like, he is the go-to. Like, he's going to go out there and he's going to get that kill.
Sure.
But it's like Mouz just has his number. Then he's going to do good. He's going to do fine. But everybody else on the roster, unfortunately, it's like they have their playbook, honestly. And like Torzy from Mouz is just like, I think he gets under Donk's skin, honestly. Like the way, like I remember him having a few words for Donk after the game. He's a fantastic opera, but Donk is like the highlight of their team. You take Donk away, you got Shiro. Fantastic player. You take him away, it's like we start to drop a little bit.
Sure.
And I don't know if it's like strat-wise what they need to do. Maybe they need to position Donk a little bit differently. Maybe we need to take Donk and not be like so super aggressive. Maybe if we can keep him alive for a little bit later, maybe put him in some better spots, he might be able to trade a little bit better. Because a lot of times I feel like he doesn't necessarily throw his life away because he's usually good for 1. Sure. But like a lot of times he may get that 1 to 2 early on, and then the rest of the team has to clean up. And while I think they should be able to do that, sometimes like I think they just get outstratted even though they have a man advantage usually going into this. That's why I think maps like Dust 2 is why they excel so much, because it's just like a straight slay map, less necessarily about the strats and more about like, hey, you going to take this long fight with me or not? Yay or nay? You going to run your tunnels or what, So basically Mouz, I think they just know if we can just take out Donk and we can pretty much win the round and we'll be good.
It is interesting, though, because I do agree with your sentiment on the fact that, when you look at Vitality right now, who's on top of the world, it's like ZywOo and Donk are pretty dissimilar. They're not, they're not like same type of role, same type of movement, same type of mechanics. Because it's like, you look late in any realm of Vitality, it's probably ZywOo, and he's about to get a clutch. Even when you look at G2 right now, m0NESY is arguably the 3rd best player in the world, and it's late in the round, it's m0NESY in the 2v2 or 2v3 or something like that. You're never, when you're looking at Spirit, you'd never get to see that, hey, it's Donk in a 1v3, it's Donk in a 1v2. It's not even Donk and Chopper in a 2v2. Because like you said, like the stat, to go one step further than what you said, Donk has 22 first blood kills so far. His whole team has 20. Like the whole rest of the team has 20. They're supposed to have an alt entry point, and that's supposed to be Magic's. And to your point, I think when Shiro kind of sits behind Donk and picks up his kills, Donk's good for probably a kill and a half every round. Like his ADR is insane. And then Shiro gets to kind of sit beside him, and he has a little bit lower of an ADR, but he gets to pick up a lot more kills as a result of it. But you kind of want Magic to be on that off-site, trying to be able to get a chunk of kills over there. And I think Chopper does a really good job of IGL. I mean, at the end of the day, they come up with some really clutch plays, and they do a good job of securing wins, but it just feels like something's missing. And if you keep pulling Mouz in these events, you're not going to make it to the finals to play Vitality. And at this point, those cats are streaking, and you got to stop them somehow.
And that's what's so crazy is like the duality of Mouz being able to dominate Spirit, but yet can't dominate Vitality. Yet Spirit and Vitality are a good matchup. It is quite strange, and that's why like Counter-Strike right now is like so many teams are so close together that it feels like anybody can really bring home a top 4 performance, give or take Vitality or Spirit.
Yeah, they're going to be there, but then whoever else those other 2 spots are. And on that note, like the next thing we wanted to jump into is like, dude, everything feels like it's going to overtime, right?
Yes. No, I mean, that's what, like, they're so close that they can't seem to finish games.
Totally. And it's like, well, it's one of those where I think we're almost through the groups portion of the Lisbon Open. And I think 50% of the games have went to the 3rd map. 50% of the games have had over 10 rounds won by the losing team. There's been an insane amount of overtimes. It's been insanely competitive. But to your point, it's one of those things like, if you look at that, say, 3 through 10 spot, it's like if Faze is there, you're not surprised. If Navi's there, you're not surprised. If Mongols are there, you're not surprised. G2 are there, you're not surprised. It's like, dude, that list goes pretty deep. Like Falcons, if they made a run, we wouldn't be surprised. It's like, I mean, maybe Falcons. They've been choke artists. But other than those cats, it's like it feels like it is so deep right now, and everything does feel so competitive. And, I really think this is, and all hats off to Valve, especially with this kind of CS2 rebrand, relaunch. It's like they changed a lot of things with the econ, and yes, it does feel overtly T-sided right now, but the game feels so uniquely balanced. Like in Valorant at least, or even Call of Duty, like whenever you see teams are down, say 5-1 in a search in Call of Duty, or if a team is down like, the 100 Thieves match the other day where you're down like 10-1, like those maps are over. Like they're done. Like you've got no chance. But like we've seen so many times where it's a 10-1, 10-2, 10-3, and then boom, we're in overtime. Like it's crazy the runs on the other side. And it's like, it just feels like once you get that T side, you get that money rolling, you break the econ of a CT, it's like you're just chaining 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds, and they get one, and then you go back on another 2, 3, 4, 5 streaks. So it's like, as long as you're not on match point, it feels like you've got all the life ahead of you. And it feels so competitive right now. It feels like everything is so winnable. So many of these teams are so good. It's like, who's going to pop off this match? I mean, it could be Brolin. It could be Monacy. You could have Magix carry Spirit into a match. And it's like at any point in time, anybody can get so hot. And like, we might be in the golden era of Counter-Strike. Like this, you don't ever want to kind of look back in rose-tinted glasses, and you never know when it's the golden era. But like, dude, this could be it. Like, it feels crazy. Like, it feels really good.
Yeah, and just as you were saying, like, it is crazy how a lot of times when these Counter-Strike matches are going on, it'll be like 8-2 or 10-2 or whatever, and then it's like you kind of turn your head away because you're like, oh, well, it's over for them. And then, 15 minutes later, you're like, why are they still playing? It's like, oh my God, they're going into overtime.
Totally.
Like, what just happened? And I think a lot of that is like dependent on side variance, like you said, like it is a tad bit more T. So it's like, as long as they do good on their T and the other team hasn't done T, well, now they might get their 8 rounds on T side.
Totally.
Which can be a little unfortunate because Counter-Strike economy does seem a little weird at times. But a lot of the teams, are fantastic. G2, I love G2 Monacy, but I think you're not putting enough respect on Heavy God.
100%.
Heavy God has been,
sure.
Dude, his pistol rounds have been dominant here at this tournament, even though they haven't been performing that well.
For sure. I mean, we didn't even mention Faze, and like, dude, there's so many good teams right now. Everybody feels so deep. And
do we want to mention Faze? I mean, because I'm pretty sure Faze already went home. And if I'm not mistaken, didn't they get 13-0'd by a certain team?
They did. And VP's back in the mix too. I mean, it's like, but it's one of those, that match was crazy right until the third game.
Yeah, it sounds familiar. It's almost like a VCT game we just talked about where it seemed competitive and then it wasn't. But yeah, no, a lot of the teams are really close. Vitality may be on its own little boat, but Mouz, G2, Mongols have been doing real. Eternal Fire, who's been on like a god run right now through the bracket, like taking down some pretty good teams. It's just all around, and all is pretty close. I would say we probably are in the golden era as much as I've seen. I mean, this is no Cloud9 Boston 2018 Major America win. Like, I don't see an American team in there, but hey, I'm all for what we're getting right now.
And speaking of Eternal Fire, they're the last team to have beaten Vitality, okay? Vitality, at the current state, they are currently qualified already through. They have won, I believe, their 15th in a row. They are currently in 9th place for the record for most consecutive match wins. At the end of this event, I think they'll be able to get all the way up into 5th place. Then we've got 18 in a row is Faze at 3rd. Liquid's got 23. Nip's got 60. So, I mean, Nip did go on a generational run. So, I mean, I'm not sure they're going to be able to compete with Nip's 60 consecutive victories.
60?
Yeah, it's crazy. But so do you think that Vitality has a chance at 60? Or do you think that, they'll probably be able to compete with Faze's measly 18? Or like, well, where do you think this ends up?
Is this just for series wins? They can drop maps, right?
Correct.
60, I don't think anybody will ever be able to drop the more than 60 wins. That's like an insane number. I didn't realize it was that high. Now, if we're talking about like phases, like what'd you say, 16?
Faze has 18.
18.
And Liquid has a 23.
Oh, Liquid's got 23.
Yeah.
Ain't that like the Oakland A's number in baseball they won for their consecutive wins they won that season?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a really random fact to pull out.
Hey, you're a sports guy, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm impressed.
But no, I think they will definitely be able to beat that with this squad they got right now. Vitality and Apex and Flames and all that. They are dominant right now. And the only people that can hold the torch to them is Spirit. But like you said, and we said earlier, Mouz, as long as Mouz draws them, they might knock them out early, and they don't even have to deal with Spirit. And we've seen them deal with Mouz, and unfortunately, it hasn't been too good. I think they definitely have the weight to be able to get past the 23, but there's no way anybody's ever beaten 60 from NIP. That's crazy.
I mean, there's no part of me that's going to disagree. Like, that is an absolutely insane. That probably will be a record that we will never see broken. And if it is, it's one of those where, like, if when Donk came onto the scene last year, they started winning, dude, you'd have to win for, like, I think that span lasted 2.5 years. So it's like, that is an insane run of form. And it does feel like, and this is no offense to those players, Vitality isn't the youngest group out there. So it's like, I don't think they literally have the longevity to make that long of a run. I do also think they're going to find a bump in the road because, like, EF is the one who beat them most recently, and I believe, like, January. There's a chance they may pull them in this event. You might pull a Spirit. So I think that it's a realistic probability that they get this event. I think it's going to be impressive if they can take down the Liquid portion of the record. I do think right now, and it's tough for me to say this because currently there's nothing to back up this perspective. I'm still big Team Spirit's the best team in the world. Vitality's second. But as long as Mouz is in the way, you ain't got to beat them. So, I mean, it is what it is.
I mean, well, did they not lose to Vitality in Katowice?
They did. They did.
So I was saying, Vitality number 1, we can give Spirit number 2.
Maybe it's Mouz. I don't know.
And a team that used to be up here in the talking spot, but unfortunately went home, Faze. Apparently, a little bit of their script got leaked. The cameraman was leaning in a little bit too close when he's holding up his little book of secrets there. And a lot of the people online are outraged that maybe this is why they lost.
100%. And we saw some complaints coming from some other groups as well from the events on basically getting too close to the players, showing, you know, a little bit of notepad action. What's most impressive to me is the Twitter warriors of this world. They can take an off-angle photo, restretch and type it out in what feels like seconds. But I mean, if you're playing Faze in that moment, like, those strats were like surprisingly specific. It's like, hey, player does this, smoke here, ask person, do thing, drop back. So it's like, if that happens in real time, that showed on broadcast, even if you're looking at a 5-10 minute delay, you know, it's going to take Twitter 30 seconds to have this whole script leaked. And at that point, you text the coach of your opponent and say, hey, this is what they're going to do. So then, cool. Hey, in this moment, we're going to do the smoke. Let's fake backdoor, rotate other side. And it's like, I mean, I think the argument is valid. I think that maybe there's a little bit better way to kind of handle the notes because you've seen this whole event. It's like they are spread out everywhere over the desk. And I get it. There's a lot of complexities when it comes to the games. You'll see the players kind of looking at them and going through them between rounds. You die a little bit early. Like, oh, wait, why did that happen? Oh, actually, I should know that when he does this, he's going to do that kind of situation. So, I mean, I do think it's invaluable information. I think that for Faze, it's a little bit of a, like, you know, it is what it is. It sucks. It's going to happen to everybody. I do think you could ask the production cats to be a little bit more respectful for that. It is kind of funny, but at the same time, like, I do think it is actually a serious issue, too.
I mean, I think it's definitely serious, and I wanted to mention this, too, with about it is, like, on that series where they faced VP or whatever, and they went 0-13. Kerrigan went a whopping -16 on that one. And I don't think a script was going to make any difference in that. Now, this was before the whole script leak, but it's like, I think how specific those things are, it's like even if the coach does get a hold of that one page, I think it was Anubis was the map that it got leaked on for, which I don't did they even play Anubis? I'm actually not 100% sure on that one. But it's like, to me, I think this is a little bit overblown. I think it is a little bit unprofessional. The cameraman, like, maybe he shouldn't be like the production. Maybe he's like, oh, we should cut away from that. I mean, I know, like, Twitter, like you said, can do it. Even if it's on there for like a split second, they can just freeze frame it. Like, there's no escape from that. But, like, yeah, the cameramen sometimes do get a little too close. And if they know they have these documents on there that are showing, like, their strats and stuff, then maybe they should maybe keep a little bit far away angles. But at the same time, I think it doesn't really hurt Faze any in the long run. Like, maybe you might need to change that strat up a little bit, but like this is Counter-Strike. We've been running these same strats for 20 years. I don't think this strat that they're running, they haven't heard or seen from any other team in the league.
And that's the crazy thing. It's like, how much is it actually the strat's fault? And I mean, I don't think there's any strategy in the world that can help you get a bagel on a map. Because, dude, You got 2 pistols. You got everything in the middle. Whew, the bagel's unredeemable. So we're going to hop right into buy, sell. This is going to be, it's everybody's favorite segment. We're going to go through a whole bunch of topics, basically rapid fire. You buying, you selling. First thing we've got is the European CPC, Consumer Protection Co-op, that's a mouthful, has instituted a new policy. There's a game. It's called Star Stable. It's a free-to-play horse game. Honestly, we don't care about the game. No disrespect to your game. But the CPC is going to be now changing for Europe. Games can no longer state that the price of the item is 1,200 RP, whatever it is. You go to buy a skin in League of Legends, you're no longer going to be using RP. You've got to put euros. You got to put the dollar amount specifically. Buying, selling, government intervention, mandating prices be visible.
Yes, this is big team buy. Give me that government, get into my life, because sometimes the government needs to step in. And for one, they need to step in on things like this because I don't like how you got to be a mathematician to be able to figure out how much a skin costs.
Sure.
And they want to make you have to buy all this extra stuff of like $10 bundle, $20 bundle. Now you got to buy the $5 because that wasn't enough. And we can't just make it an even number. It's got to be $27.65, but we're giving you a deal. So it's actually $25.45. What does that even mean? Is that $24? Is that $27? It's all chaotic nature. It's so much better if it's just, hey, this is $15. Hey, this is $17. So much better.
I agree. I'm still going to go with sell. I do not want the government to invest itself into my life. I still cannot support that. However, this is going to be one of those where I look at it and I'm like, that might have been a good idea, though. That's okay. What we got next?
We just let them overstep the boundaries there. So this one's a big one because this one involves Minecraft. A beautiful game that we used to play when we were kids is getting a visual update, the Vibrant Visuals update, basically taking the game and rendering it up and making the textures more HD and a little bit detailed, but still keeping that same blocky feel that makes Minecraft Minecraft.
Honestly, is when I first saw this, I was like, oh, it's not going to be different. Dude, it's kind of different. Like, it looks nice. You're also going to be riding clouds and stuff like that. I don't know what those creatures are called, but it's a big fluffy creature. You're saddling up and riding. Low-key makes me want to play Minecraft again. I'm buying. First big update, 16 years. I think it's the first large change to the code base or something like that I saw from their development team. Dude, we're gonna spool up here at the office. Vanilla server, 5-man hardcore survival island. I'm in, buying it.
Hey, I'm joining that. This is big team buy for me as well. I've always loved Minecraft. And as the years went on, texture packs, always a big thing that people love changing around. I was always a big fan of ones that just took the original and gave it like an HD upgrade.
Yeah.
Made it more 1080p and stuff. So this is like right up my alley. I love the new style. I think it's great, and it still keeps what made Minecraft with that blocky nature, but just bringing it into the new era.
100%. I do want to note the water on Anubis, as we've been playing more Counter-Strike recently, looks like those old Minecraft visual updates, which is crazy. But speaking of Valve, the next one is Valve has said a new update to their terms and conditions, which is a public disclosure for conflict of interest. This is currently believed to be aimed at the Esports World Cup and its involvement with Counter-Strike. They're going to be making all participants of Valve-related activities publicly disclose any particular conflict of interest. Hey, I'm entering this tournament because I am being paid to. Hey, I am entering this tournament and the organizer owns part of my company. And other things that could be deemed a conflict of interest as Valve sees it in their events. Are you buying or selling this kind of, I don't want to say overstepping, but this new kind of almost governmental policy on behalf of Valve?
I guess we're just repeating the same thing. For me, it's buy because Valve has always been very consumer advocates for gamers and stuff like that. And I think this works for the competitive scene too, because I think we deserve to know if a team that is competing in this tournament by this organization has been given money to compete. Because that way the conspiracy theories don't run wild about it being scripted or yada yada, they getting better seating. It's just it's best for it to be known up front. Hey, I'm getting paid. Just like with reviews of video games, just like with anything, it needs to be known.
Yeah, I'm actually a big team buy on this one, oddly enough. And I think it's more so for, like you said, the transparency, because I don't think anyone should discredit or not value that, hey, they are paying Spirit to attend this tournament. But I don't think anyone on the outside is going to be like, boo-hoo, Spirit got more money to attend this tournament. But, dude, if they lose to a team that didn't get paid to be there, that's a cooler story. There's no net negative to this. But it does start seeming weird when it's like you got 4 teams that kind of buy their way in and 4 teams that have to qualify their way in. At least you're publicly aware of kind of the inequitable distribution of talent in the room, so to speak. So
Exactly.
I'm also a big team buy. What we got next?
Okay, so this one's got to do with your favorite game, Call of Duty.
Okay, I love it.
Obviously, Major 2 just finished, and they handed out the trophy there at the end. And boy, what was that rectangular thing?
It was a nice box.
That buy or sell? What is
box? I am selling this so fast that it is not believable. Big shout out to Volpin Props for all the stuff they do with League, VCT, TFT, all those trophies are insane. If we had ever won one of those, because we did compete in some events at one point, and if we had taken one of those home, it'd sit right here because it would be a beautiful thing. However, we didn't. If it was that COD one, though, it wouldn't be right here. That's for sure. Just a giant rectangle. Looks terrible. It's like it's not even something that sparks conversation. You had actually brought up the other day when you and I were watching a watch party with Scump, the Gears of War trophies in the background. It's like that's such a memorable moment and such a cool thing to where we see that and are like, oh man, that was a cool point in time. And it's like, dude, this square box means nothing. And it looks awful. Fast as sell. Trophies matter. Make cool stuff.
I'm definitely, I guess we're going to be agreeing on some things here. I'm big team sell too because, yeah, it was just basic. It's just like a rectangle with like a little stripe through in here and has some writing on the front. And what's funny is about the Gears of War things is like, the reason I even recognize those Gears of War right off the bat is just because their design alone was like the cog symbol edged in there and the whole shape of it, which is dope. And with the Valorant and all those, they always add these designs and elements that the show is based on, like whatever the theme is. So it is unfortunate that this is just a rectangle box. We can probably shove something like that up in the corner and it looks just like it. No, yeah, we'll keep that one in the back. Big sell on that trophy.
Speaking of things nobody needs to see, the pros currently in Valorant are complaining because there's so much visual obscurity. There's so many different abilities, and there's 2 Vipers and 2 Walls and 2 Brimstone Smokes and 2 Jet Smokes and everything else. And they're meaning this from both a production standpoint, but also from a player's perspective as well. But most of kind of the hate and conversation has been coming from the literal pro players themselves. So are you buying or selling this line of complaints? Should they just like shut up and play the game, or like, we got valid concerns?
This one is like, I would call this a light buy. I think there is some merit that they stand on about it being very visually cluttery and like stuff going on. And Riot is aware of this issue, and they have talked about that they will be trying to find issues going forward. So they do have complaints are valid, because sometimes when you have, especially when there's the Viper Harbor meta, there was walls everywhere, galore, bubbles. It was just terrible to play, and it was terrible to watch.
Sure.
So, but at the same time, this is what you signed up for. You knew it was coming. We get agents like every couple months. It's only going to get worse.
And that is why I'm going to sip my haterade and say they should be selling this, because you signed up for this. This is your game. Like, I don't disagree. I see a reality where we've got Shroud over here not knowing what's happening in Marvel Rivals. Dude, 6 months from now, we might be doing the same thing in Valorant. We might be in a double Viper pit with 2 Viper walls and 16 more abilities going on, and we don't know anything that's going on, anyone, no color differentiation. But I mean, that is the game. It is complex. It is visual obscurity. If you want to play something simple, clean, and effective, go to Counter-Strike. It's easy. If you don't play Valorant, like, that's what I'm selling. Like, you signed up for this. Like, that is the purpose of this game. Deal with it or change games. It is what it is.
It is tough. So moving on, this one is a good one here. We got Ubisoft, who unfortunately has been on the bottom tier of gamers' wish list for a while with constant stinker after stinker and bizarre decision makings. Assassin's Creed Shadow just released. Basically, Ubisoft is hanging on by this Assassin's Creed thread. If this game don't sell well, I mean, Ubisoft may cease to exist.
Sure.
What do we think about Ubisoft and all this Assassin's Creed stuff going on?
First off, X-Defiant was a great game.
Was it?
I think it was great. Anyway,
I forgot about it.
Well, that's depressing. That's probably true of their company in its current capacity. I think my thing is you got to stand on whatever belief you believe in. Like, I don't really care what your passions are as long as they don't negatively impact other people. And assuming that is the case, like, if you like the color blue, be blue. If you like the color red, be red. Like, who cares? Like, you can't ride this line and try to appease everyone. That's what it feels like they're doing. It feels like they made a game with a specific type of direction. They made a bunch of changes in the night, hoping no one would notice because they think they might have offended some groups. They then pivot back the other way. And then in the darkness of night, they try to re-pivot back. And it just gets complicated and messy really quick, because then nobody on either side's happy. You feel like you're getting bought. It's It's not a good thing. I am big team selling Ubisoft. I don't know what they make that I want to play again, so I've got no concerns as to their longevity. Hope the developers find cool places and the ideas still come to light.
This is a big sell for me, and I'm gonna make this rant as quick as possible. Okay, Ubisoft has great games, great IPs, things like Splinter Cell, Assassin's Creed used to be great, X Defiant. I didn't forget about it, but it was kind of forgettable. But like they just keep going about things the wrong way.
Sure.
They literally have a person hired that is their monetization director for single player games, whose sole purpose is to monetize single player games. So Assassin's Creed Shadow, you can literally buy anything in the game. It's a single player game. You can buy resources, you can buy maps, you can buy whatever. The whole game is structured around to make your play more sluggish, so you will spend money to buy these microtransactions. Complete rubbish design. Rubbish. And lastly, they're having a complete meltdown at the office. They're literally hiring teams to like be safety coordinators for these devs because they're scared of backlash that's coming to them online. It is really bizarre. It doesn't matter what way you side with it. You shouldn't harass devs, but at the same time, why are we putting resources into making sure there's like nobody's calling them a no word online? It's just so bizarre. Just sell this crap. Ubisoft needs to go on already.
Could we just go back to Far Cry 3? Like, I mean,
yeah, when things were actually good.
100%. So last thing we want to discuss is, I mean, you're on the internet, you're aware. What is your morning routine? Are we dipping our face in a vat of ice? Like we buying or selling
with lemon in it. Don't forget the lemon.
And then bananas, got to wipe that peel on your face. We buying or selling morning routines?
Look, I'm all... okay, wait, are we buying just morning routines in general or posting videos about morning routines? Because there's a big difference here.
Can it be both?
Okay, well, no, if it's videos, it's a sale. If it's just your own morning routine, yes, buy. It's good to have structure in the morning like that and have, you know, because I'm all about like keeping in line. When I lost all that weight is because I had a structure that I followed every day and did not vary. So that kept me in line. But like doing the online thing, posting the video about it, that's the cringiest thing I've ever seen in my life. But at the same time, it is the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, it's funny.
It is great content.
It is funny for all the wrong reasons. I'm gonna sell this only on the notion of I think this is just a marketing thing. Saratoga water is up 1,300%. I've seen them move to the front shelves of stores. I think this is an inside job.
No way.
Yes, I think this is an inside job. I think this is the craziest guerrilla marketing we've ever seen. Because, dude, that video can't be real.
Wait, like, that actually works? Consumerism like that works?
100%.
People bought that water because this homie dumped his face in it?
100%. There's all these memes you see on Twitter, and everybody has the water in it. Like, dude, the water is doing numbers. So I'm selling just because of the consumerism. I think if you have a morning routine, do your morning routine. Do whatever works for you. Don't go buy this water. And honestly, probably don't watch this video. Just make fun of it on Twitter. That's all the world needs.
You're not going to look like him because you dip your head in water.
I think you have to get the advanced Assassin's Creed DLC to look like that.
Exactly. You got to pay that money.
100%. Well, thank you guys for hanging out with us today and enjoying the banter. As always, if you got any other questions, comments, concerns, let us know down in the comment section below. If you have any weird things you want us to buy or sell, feel free to reach out to us. Message him on Twitter because I think that would be funny. But thank you guys for watching. Peace out.